Hi, my name's Dave and you're listening to episode 67 of On the Bench, the podcast for scale modelers, by scale modelers, all about scale models. This episode is going to be a little different, folks, because you may or may not be aware, but the east coast of Australia has been inundated with a huge amount of bushfires over recent weeks. And as part of my job, I've been tasked to head up there and give them a hand. So, in the interim, rather than missing out on our normal fortnightly podcast, I've dug deep into the archives and I've pulled out the interview that we had with Richard Alexander from Wingnut Wings, which is certainly one of the most popular podcasts ever. So I'll be back in another fortnight with the guys to do our regular show, but in the meantime, enjoy this one and of course stay safe, everybody. The Scale Modelers Supply Lacquer Paints are a new and exciting range of paints specifically designed for the scale modeler. SMS paints have been formulated for airbrush use on a variety of scale model mediums, such as plastics, resins, and even metal. Being designed for airbrush use, all the guesswork with thinning ratios has been completely eliminated. All you need to do is give the sturdy glass bottle a good shake and then simply pour and spray. And of course, being an acrylic lacquer, they are tough. Much tougher than water-based paints and are very fast drying, giving you more time at the bench. SMS paints have a massive range of colours to choose from that will suit any scale model, including Gunpla, car, science fiction, aircraft, military, and even trains. And did we mention they also do a variety of weathering products, brushes, tools, and accessories? Go and check out the full range and find your local stockist by typing in scalemodeler.com.au or simply punch in SMS paints to your search engine. And hey, great news if you're in the US and Canada, SMS paints are now available through usagundamstore.com. So give SMS paints a try. I know you'll be happy with the result. Fine Scale Modeler is proud to support On the Bench. Fine Scale Modeler is the world's most recognised and essential magazine and is available in all good newsagents and newsstands or wherever you purchase your magazines. Alternatively, go to their website www.finescale.com and subscribe to either the print edition or the digital edition, or why not both? Go now. Go to www.finescale.com. And we're back, and on the line we've actually got Richard Alexander from Wingnut Wings. Hello, Richard.
G'day, Dave and the guys.
Good to have you on the show. Yeah, really good, thanks, mate. And we're super pumped to sort of devote this entire episode purely to Wingnut Wings because we've got so many questions to ask you, and I'm sure you've got a lot of information to impart. But before we actually get down to that, let's give you a bit of a bio on yourself. So, reading the Wingnut Wings website, it says that you are an award-winning scale modeler with many years of experience in the model hobby industry. And you had a long-term interest in military history, race cars, and motorsports, mainly from the 60s, is that right?
Yeah, that all sounds like the sort of thing I might write and put on our website.
So, Richard, tell us, how did you get this, what would have to be a dream job role of working for Wingnut Wings as a general manager?
I was managing a local hobby shop and knew quite a few of the local visual effects people, and obviously Peter Jackson, who was a local filmmaker and a modeler, would come in the shop and got to know him. And I guess when they were shopping around for somebody to look after this project, I imagine they thought of a lot of people, and one of them that they contacted was me. Took a phone call, took a meeting, and the rest is history.
Oh, wonderful. So, while we're talking about history, do you want to run us through the actual history of Wingnut Wings itself?
Sure. So in the very beginning, I wasn't here, but it's obviously Peter's had a long-term interest in modelling and also in a very keen interest in World War One, and in particular aircraft, but also all aspects of it. And I guess he was very keen to turn all of that into a model company to make the sort of models that he couldn't get anywhere else, the way that he wanted them to be made. And when they were filming and doing all the visual effects and stuff for King Kong, they kept on a few of the visual effects artists, and this was in 2004 or 2005, and they sort of parlayed into, doing digital modelling of World War One aeroplanes. But they were visual effects artists, and product designers was way down their list of skills, so they were making beautiful models on a computer, but with very little sort of, very little expertise in designing them to be very nice models to build and that sort of thing.
Yep.
And that sort of ploughed on, and it was they had lots of people doing all of that and working on stuff. And then in 2006, they sort of decided to get really serious, and they brought on a tool designer, somebody with tool making experience, which obviously you need if you're going to be making tooling to injection mold models. And that was Taffy, who's still with us. And then very shortly after that, they brought me on to sort of what they called coordinate the whole thing. So I had a whole bunch of digital modelers, visual effects people, and some graphic artists, and Taffy to sort of try and coordinate this whole thing into a model kit company. And that's sort of how it got started.
Yeah.
And then 2009 in April, we burst onto the scene, announcing our presence and releasing our first 4 kits, to a little bit of surprise and disbelief and excitement to a lot of people.
Those first 4 kits, it certainly took the modelling world by storm and surprise at the same time. There's no doubts about that.
Yeah, no, we do like a good surprise.
And of course, those surprises keep coming.
So, your design and manufacturing process. So, how do you get your kits to be so damn good? I mean, they just simply, they almost build themselves. The way they fall together. Ian is building your latest one, aren't you, Ian? The Junkers?
Junkers D1, yeah.
And
Yep.
Ian was saying, in some areas, the only reason why he's putting glue there, that's just as an insurance policy more than anything else.
Yeah. Everything just clips together so well. You can put basically the whole cockpit together just by clicking it together. Give it a good shake, nothing falls off.
Yeah, it's mostly good luck, really.
And expert engineering.
No, it's a lot of hard work and a lot of rework and a lot of checking and reworking stuff. A few arguments between various people involved in which is the best way to go about doing things, and usually I win, but not always.
And one of the things that has become sort of quite a bit of folklore in building the Wingnut kits is that occasionally you will have some parts that tend not to fit, and then you realise, quite seriously, it's a coat of paint. You've got to get rid of the paint off the mating surface. Bang, it's perfect.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, ideally, I guess they should fit together even with a layer of paint on them. But in reality, if you're trying to glue 2 surfaces together and they're both painted, all you're doing is gluing one layer of paint to another layer of paint.
Yep.
And then the bond is technically as strong as between paint and plastic.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So, you should be removing that anyway. You guys know all this.
Yes, we do.
Anyway, so I'll do the long answer. So we choose a model to make, and then we do research on it, and then more research, and then even more research, and that's books and plans if we can get them, as many high-quality original photographs as we can scrounge from collections and wherever. Can
I ask how long does the research phase go for? Years?
Until we start the model.
Okay.
So, I've got a big long list of stuff to work through. They're World War I aeroplanes, if you're wondering what they are.
Okay.
And I'm always collecting stuff, plans, drawings, articles, whatever possible. And then when I'm selecting, or we're selecting the next model to make, it's one that we've got as much reference material as we think we can possibly get, which allows us to make the best stab at getting it all right. There's always flies in the ointment where we're just about to send the model off for tooling, and then we get some long lost plans from the factory or some beautiful glass plate negative photographs showing details that we had no idea were there. But, generally we start with the best lot of information we possibly can. And then I allocate the project to one of my designers that I think has the most appropriate skill set to work on it. Some people have a bit more experience in corrugated metal, per se,
Yep.
or German aeroplanes, or French, maybe. And then they have to do lots of research as well. They have to go through all of this stuff and familiarise themselves with the aeroplane, and learn as much as they possibly can on their own. And then I review it with them, make sure we both understand what it is that they're being asked to do. And then they just start modelling it in a computer.
So you also, there's a bit of connection too with real life models or real life aircraft, is there not? Where I think it's Peter, and correct me if I'm wrong, has got a bit of a passion for also building one-to-one scale ones that actually fly.
That is correct, yep.
And so a lot of that would be also, it can't be a lot of drawings around for those sorts of aircraft as well. So when you do find them, it's a good mix for not only the real one, but also for the model kit that you're building as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's certainly a big help to us if the Vintage Aviator Limited have made or restored or researched a particular airplane that we are doing. That is a huge amount of help to us. It's staggeringly useful. But some people get the impression that having a real aeroplane is the panacea to everything, but real aeroplanes often introduce all sorts of, errors into them. I'm not saying the Vintage Aviators do, but, in a museum or something, generally aeroplanes that have lasted 100 years have gone through quite a few changes to keep them airworthy or display-worthy that don't match the originals that we're trying to make models of. So,
yep,
agreed.
While it's very useful to have the real thing, it's not quite as useful as you might think.
Mm. So how do you go about actually deciding which is going to be your next kit? What aircraft subject you're going to look at and choose? Is there a process for that, or it's whatever? I think we'd like to build this. This is my favourite one, or because I know Ian's got a real hankering for a particular type of kit that he wants to see you manufacture.
Well, let me know. You never know. You could sway me.
SPAD 13 would be nice.
Oh, what about our BF 109E?
There's enough of them in other areas.
There's enough 109s.
And that's my answer for the SPAD 13. There's a very good SPAD 13 out there, and that's why we haven't done a SPAD 13.
Yep.
Well, I'll throw one in, Richard. Personally, I'd love to see the Mackie M5.
Ooh.
Talking racing planes, are we?
No. They're a single-engine seaplane fighter from World War One.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Isn't there something like one of those done as a resin kit or something?
There are a few around, but I would love to see it in good old styrene.
Do resin kits already on the market influence your decisions?
To a certain extent, yeah. Yeah. They won't knock us out. You know, we've done models of kits that have existed already. So it won't knock it out completely, but we'd rather create a model of something that nobody can buy a model of yet, rather than make a new version of something that you could build if you wanted.
Yes.
Yeah.
And is it true, Richard, there's a bit of folklore around that Peter himself will often have the final say on what goes out and what doesn't get produced?
Oh, no, it's not folklore. So I'll just go back to how we choose. You know, I've got a long list of World War I airplanes from Peter, and like I say, I'm always adding to the reference material that we have for each. And then when I feel that we got enough to make an honest stab at some of them, I'll let Peter know which ones are on the coming up, and if he agrees or has a different opinion, that's what we do.
Yep.
So that's how we choose. It's all Peter's wishes.
Yep.
There's no folklore about it. That's
No, I must admit, I'm sort of hoping that one day he'll release the secret that he has a love for Schneider Trophy as well.
We all have our fantasies.
There's some of my product design has knocked up a lot of bogus Wingnut Wings box art with Schneider Cup races and Supermarine type racing planes, and that Mackie that I thought was an M5's racing plane. Man, they look awesome, but they're not on our list.
Those box designers are cruel people.
So all the kits, are they actually manufactured in New Zealand, or do you manufacture them offshore? And if you do, how do you keep on top of quality control?
Well, they're all designed here in Wellington, except in one or two in the early days. We had one of the very first modelers that we inherited from the King Kong days, Mark Miller. He did the Albatross and the Sopwith Pup and the Triplane. He was based here in Wellington, but then he went back to the States and kept working. And so he was based elsewhere. But ever since then, all the design work has been done in Wellington under my direct supervision, so I can, check things daily and review things all the time. So they're all designed here in Wellington, but once we've finished doing all of the design work and everything here, and designing, laying out the sprues and doing all of that sort of stuff, we send the files off to tooling companies in Asia for quotes and various stuff, and then it's all done there.
Well, there's a lot of other manufacturers that also go to Asia as well, but their engineering level of engineering is nowhere as tolerant or as tight as what Wingnut Wings manages to get out. I could name a couple of manufacturers, but I don't want to shame them. But you guys are certainly up there with like Tamiya and Hasegawa in regards to how the kits just fall together, and yet other manufacturers just don't seem to be able to sort of make that same grade.
Yeah, I think it's a little unfair to compare us to other similar small manufacturers. We sort of have a different philosophy and driving force, let's say. But the process is ideally every day I'll do the rounds and check on what all the designers are doing and review their work and fact check it to make sure what they've done matches all of our best references. and refine the breakdown of parts and all that sort of stuff. And, make sure that we can incorporate as many variations as necessary into the design of the parts.
When we were when we were talking earlier on off air, Martin, and that's one of the reasons why I got Martin on the show. The thing that's also amazing about what Wingnut Wings has done, not only for the modelling scene, but the cottage industry it's sort of spawned as well, isn't that right, Martin?
Yeah, the array of things that are available, whether aftermarket decals, the figures, like from Taurus models, I'll talk about it later with some of the engines that they do. You can go to this incredible length to produce something that is just phenomenal, just museum quality. And this is what I've really enjoyed seeing over the last 10 years as well, just growing that interest in Great War modelling.
Mm.
Yeah, no, it's encouraging to see, and and some of that stuff is really, really good, and some of it is not, and some of it is. I sort of cringe sometimes when I see some of the stuff being used enthusiastically, but incorrectly on our stuff.
Ah, that's really interesting.
People accidentally inaccurating their models with aftermarket stuff they bought. It's not that the aftermarket stuff is necessarily wrong, it's that it's wrong for the thing they're putting it on. But so long as it gives whoever the hell is doing it enjoyment, that's the main thing.
Yep.
But it is a little, curious sometimes.
What are you talking about, like wrong paint schemes or wrong wood being used in certain areas of the model when that didn't actually have it in real life, or
perhaps some wicker seats, Richard?
Yeah, maybe something to do with wicker seats, but like to people who aren't immersed in World War One aviation and modelling and stuff, almost all German machine gun barrels look the same, and then there's some really great aftermarket machine gun barrels available, and then people will just take one and put it on 3 different guns, making 2 of them wrong.
Right, yeah.
They look cool, but they're wrong.
But they're correct, yes.
So we've got little hints and tips on our website to try and prevent that from happening. But again, if it happens, it doesn't matter because the modeler loves it, and it's fine.
Mm. And your instructions often have brilliant photos that can give reference to and provide the information required, right?
Yes, we have very good relationships with various collections and collectors, and we are able to publish a lot of their photos. They're very generous. We also have access to a lot of other photos that we can't publish because we don't have the rights to publish them and stuff. But yeah, I certainly try and select the most useful photos for the instructions to get points across to the modeler or about various differences or overturn previous misconceptions about how various things are supposed to look.
It's also good there's an honesty in there as well. Like in my recent build of the Torb, you made mention in the instructions of the oil tank. Now, one's in there, but you don't have the reference for where it is. So you point that out to the modeler. And that sort of honesty about detail is really good as well.
Oh, well, I'm certainly in it for the truth. Just don't want to cover things up. Don't want to Watergate the whole thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in dispelling misconceptions and not trying to make truths out of what you think might be right, and just having the courage to say that you don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah. In this game, you have to. Otherwise, the most certain way to be wrong about something is to say it was only one way, or it was always like this, or this is this is how it was. So that's pretty much the best way to be proven wrong about anything.
Yep.
Because there's so many. It's not that anything is possible, and there's certain rules that various things, follow. But it's very, very important that you just don't get too dogmatic about things, and get all upset when other people disagree, because you might actually be wrong.
Yeah.
And hell, if somebody will come up with evidence to prove that we're wrong about anything, I'll love to see it. It's fantastic.
And you've even on a couple of
correction.
Sorry, yeah, I was going to say even a couple of colour schemes. You've issued corrections for decal sheets and the like, which has been really good to see.
Honestly, I might come across as a bit of a muppet, but we just put a correction up on our website yesterday for a specific detail on the Albatross D5 that nobody had really noticed wasn't on it. So there's a little correction on each of our Albatross D5 models, saying to remove a little detail that was really only on the D5A.
Okay.
Oh, right.
Around the lifting handle at the back. It's a rookie mistake, but geez, yeah. I mean, it's in an area that's mostly in shadow all the time and everything, but just going through a few things for loading up the website content for this Manfred von Richthofen release to the Albatross D5, it became quite apparent it's just not there.
Right. Yep.
That's the
that's
classic
an example.
modeller's dilemma, isn't it? That the photos that you have on hand never show the one thing that you want to see.
Yeah. Or did they arrive long after you've gone past the point of no return?
Exactly. Yeah.
The other thing that it constantly amazes me about Wingnut Wings is that not only are the kits, drop dead gorgeous in their own right, even without building them, but the artwork that's done on the box, and Julian mentioned earlier before, the instruction manuals, how beautiful the instruction manuals are, and the whole package just comes together and just fits so well.
Yeah, best instructions bar none.
Yeah, absolutely. Your model, your website is a beautiful website in its own right, and the amount of information that the modeler there can go there and seek is just the whole package from start to finish is just
quality.
Absolutely, yeah.
Top quality.
And I don't mean to sound like a Wingnuts fanboy, but
no, that's my job, Dave.
I'm not opposed to that.
But the other thing, in all seriousness, I've been purchasing kits from right from the start. There have been a couple of times where I've made mistakes. I've stuffed up parts, or I've needed to purchase aftermarket parts, and dealing with the company, particularly Dave Johnson over there, just magnificent. Really, really good teamwork. You feel like, I know this probably sound a bit funny, but almost like you're part of a family. It's like a modelling family.
Part of the fraternity.
Fraternity, yep. Perfect.
Yeah, I think that's something that's lacking in a lot of other model manufacturing companies. There's not enough communication with the community.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty rare these days.
I guess it's difficult for big companies where there's not one or individual people you can contact for just about anything. There's departments and heads of departments, and then it's a little bit, you lose that personal touch. I guess it makes it a little bit more difficult.
Constantly being
but, we're there to try and make people enjoy the process of building their models even more, and getting extra parts to people is certainly part of it.
Yeah, and I think particularly when you talk about getting people to enjoy the modelling, I mean, one of the things that I've always done, and I've built quite a few now for Model Art Australia in the review, and one of the things I put across in my reviews is I encourage people to just enjoy them, build them out of box. This is probably maybe the negative side of these amazing kits, and how well they're presented and the details that you get in the box, is that I've got lots of modelling friends and colleagues that are building up their stashes, yet actually getting them built is just a whole lot. Always I hear, I just got to get my skills up. I've just got to be able to do this, just got to be able to do that. And I say to them, just enjoy it.
Just build it.
Absolutely, because they do go well together. If you've got some basic modelling skills under your belt, go for it. Even if you don't rig the thing, it still looks amazing.
That sounds like good advice to me, Martin. I go along with that.
And I think this is where the Junkers D1 is a masterstroke, because I know a few people have said, oh, right, this one I'm going to have a go at. Even a couple of people who don't actually have an interest in that specific aircraft as such, they see it as an avenue into the Wingnuts model range.
I've fallen in that category because I've got a fair few Wingnut kits in the collection. And as you said before, Martin, so I thought, I'll wait off. And then the D1 came out and I was like, this is a hot rod. I've got to get this.
Well, rigging can be intimidating.
Definitely.
Bought one and building it straight away.
Yeah, and as Julian said, they can be intimidating.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things, and Richard, I'm sure you saw it and would agree, is that with the absolute masterful work people were doing with the early Wingnut releases, beautiful hand-painted wood schemes and all that sort of thing, and then posting it up, people were going, oh my goodness, I have got no opportunity to do that sort of work, therefore I'm not worthy type thing.
Yeah.
Which is a real pity.
Yeah, but at the same, what people have to just realize is that it is a model kit. It's only plastic. If you stuff it up, you can buy another one.
Yep.
It might cost you a bit, but you can do it.
And there's always this
I would encourage anybody that's having second thoughts about making a start or feeling a bit discouraged to just have a look at the customer models gallery on our website. There's models on there from modelers all around the planet of many different skill sets, and it's really amazing to see them submitting their works. You know, you can see everything on there. It's just fantastic. And you know, some people you look at something and go, "Oh, there's no way I'll ever do that," and then the next one you click on, I can build something like that.
Yes.
Look at that person. It's great to see. Fantastic.
Well, I bought the Fokker D7, and I did so sort of going, okay, well, the rigging's intimidating, so I'll pick one with not much rigging.
Yep.
But then after I bought it, I sort of thought about it for a while, and I thought, well, if I'm going to build one of these things, I probably should have picked one that has rigging, right? Because if I'm going to do it, I may as well go go in properly, not just sort of put my feet in and then walk back out.
But the D7's such a classic aircraft.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people overthink it too much.
Yeah.
The rigging. If you read the hints and tips on our website, it's pretty clear my point of view. And that's keep it as simple as possible. Use that stretchy elastic stuff just glued into holes.
Yep.
Exactly.
And that's all I've used when I've rigged, the ones I've built. And if I had to go through a lot of the stuff that people recommend doing online, I don't think I would have finished any of them. I can't be bothered.
Yeah, and certainly for rigging, what I do for turnbuckles is that I just get the Albion Alloys micro tubing and just cut it into 4 mil lengths, and it's really just adding a small extra step over the top of just exactly as Richard said, just gluing the stretchy line into the holes.
Yep.
And that gives, to me, a really, really good representation of a turnbuckle with really, really, small amount of effort.
Yes.
And because your tubing's on the line, it's in the same direction as the rigging and everything.
Correct.
So it maintains that visual aspect that sometimes is lost with a bit when you try and add more detail.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so I think overall as well, then you can go to the other end of the scale. Like just recently finished the Torb. Now, even using a simplified way of doing the rigging, that was an interesting build because the amount of rigging is one thing, and it's a real backhanded compliment to the incredible moulding techniques that you have with your injection moulding. There is that the tail, particularly, is just so thin. Like it has that transparent look, even when you put a layer of paint over it. And what I found is that when I'd attached the lines underneath, I had a little bit of an ocean effect. So it was actually tensioning the plastic tail.
Yep.
It's that thin.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I had to fix a couple of the lines, and then I had to do the top ones. And again, I had to redo a few just to actually get it straight. So there is a bit of a challenge. So as a first up kit, definitely I wouldn't recommend the Torb, but certainly one to work towards.
Yeah, the Taub was an interesting one. That we were very, very pleased with the tooling company and how they were able to get that tooled so nicely. I mean, we modelled it, but they had to tool it. It's a whole new game. And also the injection moulding it's just amazingly done. It certainly took a little bit longer to injection mould those than a normal kit to make sure all the plastic filled them and everything. The other interesting thing with that Taub is that although there is a lot of rigging on it, it's one of the Taubs with about as little rigging as any of them. Most of them have a ton more. So it's about as easy as you'll get with a Taub. But there is that weird sort of one line going into 6 or 8 lines, for the control surfaces that's a little bit peculiar.
Yeah. So there's certainly a few challenges there, but with the array of kits that are on there, going now from our new Junkers D1 that Ian and I have got on our modelling benches at the moment, through to the Torb, and there's everything in between. So really good array to test your skills on and develop your skills. And I think one of the other areas of the Wingnut kits that has helped me with my modelling, that at first was a bit intimidating, with things such as doing the wood graining. Now, I did have a go at doing the propeller on the very first one I built was the Roland D6, and so that was an interesting one. I ended up doing that just like a combination of paint and pencils, and then moving on to some of the other models where I had a bit of wood graining on the inside. I utilised the Ushi wood grain decals, and then branched out my skills into some oil paints and just seeing what was on the net and expanding on those skills as well. Ushi even do leather decals now. So for those that are feeling a bit intimidated, these are the sorts of products that are out there. We're talking about the engines, like the Taurus engines now, 280 parts for a Clerget 9B engine. That's going to be an interesting build, but I intend to hang that off the front of a Sopwith triplane at some point.
It's got twice as many parts as the model kit.
Exactly. So, but that's planned for a diorama scene. I actually want to do the German captured one. So one that's being pulled apart. So that's one that I'll go to town on. But for the most part, it's utilising just basic modelling skills and some of the good aftermarket products. Aviatic do an interesting array of fabric looking lozenge decals if you want to go to that extreme as well.
Nth degree.
Yeah. And Richard, have you heard of the drooling bulldog paints?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I've got a few of those, and I'm actually going to utilise those on the Junkers D1. That was interesting learning about them. Now, they're saying that they've done the research into not just the colours that they use to mix up all their paints, but like the chemical structures, how the paints were quite transparent, and they'd mix a zinc oxide in it to get a bit of opaqueness, so that a red aircraft wasn't really just a red aircraft. Depending on what surface it hit, you'd have all these different textures and shades of red.
Yeah, just treat all that sort of stuff with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Anybody that says they've got the one true formula for something, just don't buy it hook, line and sinker. Not saying anybody's wrong, but it's more people are wrong by saying they're right than the other way around.
Put it in your quiver with all the other arrows and then use them if required.
I mean, I imagine that over there in New Zealand, you've got quite a library of information. Exactly like how much? I mean, is it in books? Is it digital? I mean, how much information would you have altogether?
Oh man, it varies considerably. Something like, let's just say, the Yonkers D1, which is absolutely one of my favourite ones we worked on because, man, we discovered so much about it. We had around 100 photographs.
Wow. And
almost no plans or drawings. Maybe half a dozen. We had, there's published plans and model books and magazines, but we almost never refer to those because they're just not normally accurate enough. Mm. We refer to them as a last resort. So we had, for the Yonkers D1, we had maybe around 100 photos and almost no plans. For something like the Dolphin, we had over 500 photos and over 500 drawings and plans from the Sopwith factory.
Does that sometimes make it more difficult when you're overloaded with reference?
It can do, but it's much better to be like that than the other way.
True. Very true.
Much better. But it's a big job trying to work out which of the things you need to pay attention to and that are important and found their way onto World War I airplanes, and which sort of preliminary drawings of parts or suggested replacements that never found their way into production, and just make sure whatever you find in the plans and drawings, you can back up with some image from World War I showing that area of the aircraft and proving that it existed like that.
Mm. Yeah,
it's a big process.
Absolutely. And I think, we're talking about things like the drooling bulldog paints, which I'm going to give a go on the D1, but one of the interesting things is that in building Wingnuts kits is that I've discovered the joy of using Tamiya paint. Now, as a modeler of many, many years, right. it wasn't until I started doing the Wingnut stuff that it started out just purely being lazy or economical or efficient, and just buying the Tamiya paint, mixing it up as suggested, using the Tamiya proprietary thinners. It was like, what have I been missing out on all these years? Sometimes we get so overloaded with choice and trying to get the nth degree products out there that we're missing the basics of our hobby.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. It's the most widely sold paints out there, isn't it?
Tamiya, yeah.
Yeah, and they're my favourites, the Tamiya paints. I mean, obviously you can buy them here, so that's why I'm familiar with them, as well as the Humbrol. And you can pretty much buy them anywhere, and if you don't like using those paints, you've normally got some sort of benchmark that you can find a similar colour to, because they are pretty much everywhere. But what surprised me is that in some countries, they don't sell the Tamiya enamels.
Oh, yeah.
So some of the metallics and stuff are really only good if you're using the enamels rather than the acrylics.
Yes.
And some people in some countries obviously can't. They're stuck with the acrylics.
Yep.
And all of our paint suggestions are obviously based on the Tamiya mixes first, and then secondarily on the Humbrol. But I'll never say they're all right. They're a best guess and a best approximation, and as best we can do.
And I'm sure if you could go back in time, hit the time machine, go there, you'll look at aircraft that have different variations of, quote unquote, the same colour.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting we're talking about that because there's another podcast I listen to. It's called Extended. It's done over in the UK, and the most recent episode is on Anthony Fokker, and it goes through his life story. It's fantastic. It goes for about an hour. Great to listen to. It's actually got the author of who's done a book on him, and Anthony Fokker. He was it was only when he was in the US and he was looking at the production of I think it was a Douglas DC-1 and DC-2. It was all metal. And it was then that he realised how you can get quality control into your aircraft because everything was all hand-built prior to that. And so here we are in the late 1920s, and he's suddenly, early 30s, and he's come across a manufacturing process, and he goes, oh, I can now get quality control into my aircraft because it's all metal and all sort of punched out in machines rather than being hand-built. Because prior to that, no two aircraft were exactly the same. Each aircraft had its own little quirks and issues. And yeah, I'd highly recommend people go back and dig out that particular podcast and have a listen to it. It's really informative.
Yeah, and Anthony Fokker did have a few more quality control problems compared to most other manufacturers at the time as well.
Yeah, they had things like the wings were falling off.
Other manufacturers were a little bit better.
Yeah, the wings were falling off because they didn't varnish certain parts properly enough in the factory, etc., which is a bit disconcerting if you're a German pilot and you're flying along and you see your wings suddenly come off.
Well, in most cases you had two sets, so what's the problem?
But just getting back to the paints and stuff, so I did sort of say, our mixes from the Tamiya are the best approximation, but we do have access to quite a lot of original fabric samples in many cases, so they're a very good match. I'd stand behind them. Certainly wouldn't say it's the only way they look, but it's certainly the best approximation.
Best you're going to get.
Yep.
Well, I mean, from the way it sounds, I would assume that you guys have the biggest nexus of information available at your feet, and it's probably unlikely that anyone else has more information than you guys.
I wouldn't say that, no.
Really?
The Imperial War Museum and
some of
the archives in Germany and Italy, and there's tons of information out there we just don't have access to. And new photos are being discovered now of things from well over 100 years ago.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yep.
So, Wingnut Wings into the future, whereabouts are you still going to always maintain just your World War I flavour, or are you going to start creeping into the 1920s as well?
Well, we've got into the 20s already, but basically by using aircraft created and designed in World War I, but we have no plans to... our plans are to concentrate on World War I. There's still plenty to do there.
Oh, heaps. Absolute heaps.
Never say never, but that's what we're concentrating on. That's what we know best.
It's true.
That's right. You got the winning formula.
Yep.
So, any chance of a scoop in letting us know what your next model is going to be, Richard?
Good luck.
Not really. I'll say that.
It's got at least 2 wings.
So you asked a question about what's happening in the future, and I poo-pooed, interwar planes, but we've got plenty of models planned that are going to be released well into 2020 and beyond.
Fantastic.
And they're just sort of being modelled or in production or in tooling stage now. We've got a few more re-editions of existing kits and new boxes and new schemes to get some of the sold-out models back into the market.
Oh, good. Because there's a few that there's a few I didn't get that on now I'm bleeding. I missed out on.
Yeah, it's a shame, but it's a good way of getting them out in a new form. A few more of the personality releases, like we've just started taking pre-orders on that Manfred von Richthofen Albatross D5, so we've got a few more of those planned, and we've had those planned for 9 years or so.
Wow.
Those figures, the Mike Good figures. I commissioned those in 2009.
Wow.
So we've been sitting on those for quite some time.
Jeez, yeah.
And we've still got special editions planned of all of our standard releases. We've been threatening that for the entire time we've been public, and they're still being threatened, and they will come eventually. And similarly with standalone figures and stuff like that.
Yes.
They will eventually come out. And in some sort of tangential way, the release of these, the Manfred von Richthofen and the other ones, are sort of a bit of a proof of concept that, the figure production will be good enough to support what we've got planned. So a scoop, no, but I can tease something in that all things going well, and they don't always go well. So treat that as you wish. We should have something with a bit of an Aussie flavour out before the end of this year.
Ooh. Oh, well, I'll take that then.
Yeah. You can read into that what you want.
That's the closest to a leak we'll ever get.
Yes.
Well, I'm putting money on the fact that it won't be a jet.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'll accept that bet.
All right, Richard. So, guys, I think that's pretty much putting us close to the clock. Anything else from you, Martin?
No, look, I think I just keep saying the same thing to anyone that has Wingnut Wing kits in their stash. Just pull one out and start gluing it together.
Yep.
And you got any last questions?
I
for
totally agree
Richard?
with Martin, and yeah, I'm doing that right at this very moment. Just putting together, and I'm loving every minute of it.
Oh, good.
I think out of all of us, I'm probably the most. Even though I own one Wingnut Wings kit, I'm probably the least involved in this particular genre. So I wouldn't even know what to ask really.
Richard, thanks so much for coming on the show. Yep. Next time you're over from Australia, give us a buzz, and we'll have to go out and grab a can of lunch or even a dinner together. And I'm sure the boys will be quite happy to join me in doing that. Oh, I know you did get over this side.
Very generous of you.
I know you do get over this side of the ditch every so often, so just give us a heads up next time you're over. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yes.
Thank you
No
so
problem. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Richard. Take care.
Thanks so much for sharing all the information. And we'll keep our eyes open for that teaser that you just dropped earlier on, and we'll go from there.
Definitely.
I'd just like to say your guys, your enthusiasm is very encouraging.
Thank you.
Keep it up.
All right. Thanks
Richard.
very much.
Thanks.
Take care.